meeting shortly. Welcome to the Somerville Job Creation and Retention Trust meeting of March 12th, 2024. My name is Annika Van Eaton, and I am managing trustee of the Job Creation and Retention Trust, and I call this meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. On March 29th, 2023, Governor Healy signed into law a supplemental budget bill which extends the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2025. This extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location, and to provide adequate alternative access to remote meetings. This session will be recorded and will be public record, and I will now ask the board members to confirm they are in attendance in alphabetical order. Thomas Bent.
Present.
Vicky Hoyts.
Present.
Silvana Dinka. Here yet. Jim Hatchie.
Present.
Wilfred Mba. Rachel Ned-Carney. Annika Van Eaton, present. Rand Wilson.
I'm here.
All right, we have quorum, and I will now ask city staff to present a few house rules about using the technology.
Hello, everyone. My name is William Blackmer. I'm the Workforce Development Coordinator and serve as staff to the Job Creation and Retention Trust. When an agenda item is being presented, presentation materials received ahead of time will be displayed on the screen. If the chair asks for public comment, please use the raise hand function if you would like to speak, and you will be unmuted one by one and given 2 minutes to speak. Trust members, all votes tonight must be roll call votes with a motion and a second. The chair will call on each board member for a yes/no vote in alphabetical order. Please remember that any comments you type into the chat box will be part of the public record in accordance with open meeting law, and one-to-one chat has been disabled in order to comply with public records law. I'm going to pass it back to Annika for the first agenda item, and we'll get started.
Thanks, William. Welcome, Savannah. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
All righty. So, William, could you put the agenda up on the screen share, please? All righty. Super. So, here's our agenda for the evening. And our first agenda item is going to be our classic review and approve of the January 16th meeting minutes. So in the meeting materials was a meeting minute attachment from January 16th. Are there any edits or revisions to be made before approval? Seeing none.
I move to approve the January 16th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I second.
Okay, we will now vote to approve the Jan 16th meeting minutes. Thomas Bent.
Yes.
Vicky Hoyts.
Yes.
Silvana Dinka.
Yes.
Jim Hatchie.
Yes.
Annika Van Eaton, yes. Rand Wilson.
I think I have to abstain
Abstention. All righty.
because I think I missed the meeting.
You were in here. Okay. That sounds good. Measure passes. So now we are at the point of the agenda where we will.
Hey,
My
just,
team-
I'm looking at the agenda, the attendance, and it looks like you were there, Rand.
Oh,
Yeah, on the 16th, right?
okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll change my vote.
Meaning exactly as remembered. Okay.
Just as
sounds
I
good.
remember it. Sure, I'll vote yes.
Alrighty. William, let the record reflect. Rand votes in favor of approving the minutes. Um, great attention to detail, Tom. Love it. All right, so now, with Colleen stepping down at the end of last year, we have a need for a new co-managing trustee. And so I would like to open up the floor for nominations on somebody to serve in that role. I have a nomination that I would like to put forward. I would like to nominate Vicky Coitz to step into the role of managing co-chair. Welcome any other
I-
nominations in the field.
I'll second that.
Uh,
I third it.
Vicky, would you so honorably serve?
Yes, well, I'll try to honorably serve, but I will definitely serve you, Madam Chair.
Awesome. I would have you in this role. William, do we need to do a vote on this? Is it an election?
Yeah, we can do a roll call vote just to confirm the nomination.
Okay, super. So in favor of Vicky serving as JCRT board co-managing trustee, Tom Bent,
Yes.
Vicky Coitz,
Yes,
Silvana Dinka,
Yes.
Jim Hatchie,
Yes.
Annika Van Eaton, yes, Rand Wilson.
Yes,
Okay, welcome back, Vicky. Thank you.
great to be back. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for your support. Appreciate that.
thank you for stepping up to serve.
Yes, absolutely.
Guys do a good job.
Okay, so we are now at the point where we have some updates from our subcommittee. I am going to share an update from the mental health subcommittee. Let me move you guys around. Sorry, folks. Alrighty. So my update is that I am excited to say that we have finalized an RFP. It's going to be released tomorrow. We appreciate the board's sort of feedback and thoughtfulness during this process. And in the RFP, the board is going to be seeking an organization to provide mental health resilience, trauma-informed approaches training for staff of social service providers. And that training will support staff who provide direct service to residents receiving job training, adult education, and other social services. So applications for this RFP will be due May 13th at 12 p.m. We're hoping for the first cohort of social service providers to participate in the training in the fall. And thank you so much, William, for your work putting together this RFP. And then William, do you want to share the update from the Good Municipal Jobs?
Yeah, thank you, Annika, for giving the update, and we're excited to see that RFP lift off. For the Good Municipal Jobs Training RFP, we have also been working on it since the January meeting. At this time, I was advised to hold a meeting with several of the city departments that may be impacted by this program to brief them on the program and the program goals. I've had some of these meetings individually, but it's time for me to bring all of these city departments together. So I'm working on scheduling that meeting now, and I will keep the full board updated and of course the subcommittee updated on that progress.
Good.
Vicky?
Well, I know this meeting is recorded, but William, when you were given this advice, was it in the spirit of, oh, they will be so excited, they'll want to participate from the beginning? Or was it more in the spirit of, what are you trying to do? And we need to keep an eye on this.
That's a great question. I can't definitively say that there's like everything is leaning one way or the other. Um, I think that um part of this is related to the types of roles that we're trying to target with this training. And there's, several parties involved with the job quality of these positions, including the union, including human resources from the city, the mayor's office. So I think the effort for the meeting altogether is just to make sure nothing is stepping on anyone's toes. But I'm curious to hear in that meeting if I can get more information on, any concerns. But I have the different representatives I have spoken to in different parts of the city have voiced excitement for the program, especially given the hiring needs. It's just making sure that this is being rolled out and aligning with other conversations that are happening.
Good. Well, the transparency and the extra communication is a good way to proceed. So it's a slowdown, but probably a good one. Thanks.
Rand?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to discuss this with folks from the Somerville Municipal Employees Association. And heads up, and there was, I think, excitement about building pathways for residents to get better jobs and jobs with the city, to be prepared and trained for those jobs. So no real issue there, but one wrinkle might be that suppose I work for the city now as say a clerical, and I want to be trained for IT, or I'm a laborer and I want to get a CDL, and I'm a current employee. Can I benefit from this program? Or is it just for people that are coming out of high school or perhaps another program? That could cause some internal tensions that we should be sensitive to. And I hadn't thought about that when, I was thinking high school and this is going to be great. People are going to flow into city jobs that are residents, but there are a lot of current employees who are looking to move from the position they're in to a better spot with the city. So that's something to think about.
Thanks. I think that's a very good point.
Tom?
No, I agree, and it's a great point, actually. I personally, don't see, I think, an issue with this, because if somebody wants to move up in their job and, get into another position, that means there's another opening where they were, right? So, and the training keeps kind of flowing. So, and again, at the end of the day, especially if they are Somerville residents, I think, part of the training that we're offering isn't just somebody newly getting into the field, into the job market. It's really for anybody. I feel so. I don't see this as being a problem. I don't unless I'm not seeing something. But again, they move up to a different position. They get the training for it, which they may not be able to do because they may not be able to afford it or have the time or whatever. But then their position becomes open. So hopefully we're training somebody behind them to take that position also. Just my thoughts on it.
It just, I think that it would be good if we could offer the training to, in addition to prospective city employees, if we could include existing city employees in that with those training opportunities, might smooth things out. Yeah, the whole idea would be, of course, we're creating, a flow and openings. But I think it would be, might go down better with opportunity for all.
Two other resources that we may want to make these incumbent workers aware of, or somebody could make them aware of. One is the Job Training Scholarship Fund that we have, that I'm not sure if it's really being tapped into. So there's a source of funds that might be able to be used. And then the other one is, does the city of Somerville have any sort of like education and training fund or professional development funds for folks? So 'cause I'm just thinking like the training programs might want to work with people as in a cohort, and these individual incumbent workers might be individuals seeking training. So also thinking about some individual type training support.
Well, and Vicky, to that, when Rand said somebody might want a CDL license, I know one of the things that we were, one of the things we've talked about is either giving a stipend or whatever, for CDL. So to me, that wouldn't be an issue, if they were trying to move into that position. But as with all these things, the devil's in the details, right? So, and it's a good point. I don't know if the city does have like a scholarship or any kind of job training fund for their own employees. I don't remember anything like that, but maybe they do. I don't know.
Vicky, could you run the meeting for a second? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Rachel?
Yeah, I think that's really the crux of what we've been advised to do some further conversations around, is what are those existing resources? How would this interlace with those existing programs if they exist? What is the overlap or not overlap, and like how does it's getting into those details that are a little devilish.
Mhm.
So you're thinking about it. That's all that needs to happen. Good.
Great. Thanks for raising it, Rand. Good point to raise. Any other questions on those updates?
Are we still planning a bidders conference once we get the details sorted out?
Yeah, so the challenge is just that the bidders conference would occur after the opening of the RFP. So I haven't been able to set a date, but we could meet again as a subcommittee to talk about the structure of that, with the idea that we don't have a firm date, but just in terms of what it would entail. I just haven't been as quick to schedule that, just since I wanted to kind of get the other release off the ground and make sure that we're giving people enough heads up about the bidders conference, the people we want to be there.
James, you have a hand up?
Yes, thank you. Just when is that next subcommittee meeting, and can I attend that? Can you send me the invite? That's all.
So we don't have it scheduled yet. We do have 3 board members on the subcommittee. So unfortunately, I think that a discussion of 4 members would not be allowed outside of the main meetings, the main monthly meetings. But I'm happy to just keep updates on this with the entire trust, with the idea that there can't be kind of deliberation and discussion in email threads if it's all of us. So just to kind of share updates and, you know, when,
Okay.
of course, once we're scheduling dates for the bidders conference. So yeah, thank you for expressing your interest.
All right,
Well,
thank you.
William, isn't it just the case if we have more than 4 members that the meetings just have to be announced and open to the public?
Rachel, I see your hand,
Yeah.
but that's my understanding.
It could be a special meeting. I think we need to probably check in on what sort of city policy is in terms of, do we need to then hold that meeting in the, like, at a time when the public might reasonably be able to listen to it as opposed to a daytime, like, morning meeting or something like that. So we need to do a little bit of research.
Okay,
But
well,
a
I just,
special meeting is possible. I think we just have to look at what the parameters are.
I just don't want to be excluding any interested board members, but James, if it's, you just kind of were sort of interested and are fine with us proceeding and just keeping updates in the main board meeting, that's fine. If you really, really want to be on it, then we should discuss how to make that happen.
But I think updates are fine. I was just more curious on what goes into it, and so that's all.
Okay.
I'm good.
Well, and
Thank
we
you.
can, yeah, absolutely. We can probably update you on the discussions that we've had so far since you're new and haven't been involved in the discussion about this for the last year.
Okay, thank
Mhm.
Okay.
William, I had a question for you. Do we have a date for the release of the RFP? Have you determined that?
For good municipal jobs?
Yeah.
Not yet, no.
Okay.
I'm waiting for that meeting to happen first before I set a date.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay, I'll turn it back over to Anna.
Thank you. Thanks, folks, for your comments and questions. We are now going to review the estimated linkage fees. William, if you could pull up that document and give us an update on where we are as far as funds, that would be great.
All right, so this is updated as of March 5th, so a week ago, but I can say that there haven't been any updates since. The trust currently, whoops, sorry, that was scrolling very fast. The trust currently has over $1.1 million in uncommitted funds. We have not received any additional funds since the last meeting. We have a couple of projects that are highlighted on the screen, including 100 Chestnut and 20 to 50 Prospect Street as the projects where money is expected to roll in the next couple months. So we're expecting that 1.1 to grow a bit as the calendar year moves forward, but no updates since January.
Thanks, William. Does anyone have any questions?
Just one, William, are you looking forward, in looking at, do you look at what's coming down the pike as far as what's being approved by planning and zoning and, permits that maybe be issued? Because my concern is, there's definitely a slowdown out there. And, the city has a lot of buildings that are coming online that are totally vacant, no tenants yet. And, that's a concern, I know. So what I'm more, concerned about is going into 2025 as to, you know, where we're going to be. And, you know, how much of this amount of money do we want to expend this year? Knowing that maybe next year, you know, we might be a little soft. So again, it's just kind of looking forward to see what you might see coming down the pike. In talking to, you know, OHPCD or planning and zoning to see, you know, what maybe projects will be coming online, permits being pulled, that type of thing.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that, and then I invite Rachel if you'd like to jump in. This actually tees us up well for the next part of our conversation in the meeting. The majority of the projects that we're expected to get contributions from in 2024 are the second half of those linkage payments. So those are CO payments. So those are projects that we're actively seeing progress on. We are expecting 2025 to be a slower year than 2024, especially because we're not seeing those new starts happening in 2024 because, as you mentioned, there is the excess of available space, excess supply. So I think that's a really great point, is to look at that 1.1 number, look at, you know, we may get roughly 1 to, you know, 2.7 million this year if everything moves along expediently. But this on the web. Sorry, my watch is talking to me. But we are expecting that 2025 slowdown. So it's important to think of that.
Here's to the fourth quarter of 24 picking up steam again. So, but thank you.
Rachel?
Yes, William was showing me this, and I was contemplating on it too. The list that we have here, again, these are all, as William was saying, these are all COs, right? These are projects that have already paid half. They're paying us the second half. So these ones are, that 2.7 is a we know those will come. Most of those will hit either later, like a lot of that will probably hit later half of Sep 24, or maybe some of it might bleed into the beginning of 25. But I feel very confident about that 2.78, right? Like that money I'm expecting will happen because those projects are already in construction. After this, though, I think we should sort of anticipate a no new start early 25 until we see some things shift. I think the most conservative approach would be to say this 2.78, that's coming, and then after that, it's a big question mark as to the timeline. Really, it's a matter of timing. There's a lot of projects that are approved that are ready to go. It's just a matter of, you know, the commercial market really shifting back again.
Thanks, Rachel, for that. Rand.
Just 12 of the 14 projects are for lab use. And I'm wondering if we're aligning our JCRT funding for some of the positions that might be available in these facilities. And, you know, lab is a pretty big category, you know, could be all kinds of, it's not all going to be the same kind of labs, but it just struck me as, wow. And it, you know, previous to this chart, we've seen a lot of lab development in the city back in 2022 and 3, I think. So all that lab, I wonder what kinds of opportunities there are for Somerville residents, and are we preparing people? It's more of a rhetorical question than a, you know, I'm not expecting an answer, but something to
What-
think about.
One thing I do know is one of the programs that Justice Dot has done for us was basically training for lab assistants.
Yeah.
When I've talked to some of the different lab developers, you know, they all have, we don't need you to be training people for PhDs. We need, you know, the lab assistants and technical assistants, IT people. Those are the ones that, you know, and so I know we've done that one before with Justice Dot, and I think it was pretty, from what I remember, it was very successful. I think there wasn't a big cohort. I think there were like 6 or 7 of them, and you know, everybody got jobs if I remember, and you know, they were well paying, you know, jobs. So, you know, maybe, you know, a focus on that again. But you know, again, I think this is one of the things that we'll have to constantly be doing is reaching out to these prospective businesses to see what do they want, you know, and what do they need, and to see how we can adjust our RFPs to their needs. But yeah, it's a great point.
Rachel, did you have an additional comment?
Yeah, just related to this, one of the things I've been starting to keep track of and sending William's way is the subcontractor lists for these companies. I also serve on the biosafety committee. And just the range of subcontractors that are involved in making these places tick. Triumvirate is a huge provider of jobs, and also their presence in Somerville really does support the rest of the industry, right? That the fact that they can do the cleaning, the disposal, all the logistics of handling of the materials. The other thing is that I had the opportunity to visit Ultragenics when they first opened at 100 Chestnut. And it was really interesting with sort of the range of skills that they see in this industry, right? That there are the scientists, and they're a company that focuses on rare disease research. So their facility at 100 Chestnut is truly like the early stage researchers, but they also have a biomanufacturing facility in Bedford. And so there's a link potentially to, like, it may not be a job in Somerville, but there's that biomanufacturing space that is kind of, that these companies are staying local with, right? Sometimes they need just more floor plate than is realistic in a Somerville setting. So they end up deep in the suburbs, but those are jobs that are accessible from Somerville and well paid. The other thing though that they hit on is that, you know, there's a lot, and that's why the subcontractor list is so important, is like, you know, the folks that do the electric and do the management of the moves of these companies as they move from location A to location B or merge with company C, right? Like there are many layers to it. And it was really helpful and encouraging that, yes, there definitely is a need for the lab techs. We hear that especially from the green tech sector, that lab techs are critical, but there also are routes into this industry that are good paying jobs that may not be at the bench kind of role.
Thanks, Rachel. So I'd like to move us to our agenda item of looking at our investment priorities. I think something for us to think about too when we get to conversations around these is, I don't remember when we last did a labor market information presentation. We usually do one once a year. So that might be something that we want to re-up in the next couple months, of what we're hearing from employers, what we're seeing in the data, the labor market, for us to think about where we want to focus. So we can talk about that. William, look at when would be a good meeting for us to bring that in. But to turn to our 2024 investment priorities that we finalized at the last meeting, I want to review the 3 highest ones. William has prepared some slides about, and if you want to pull those up, that doc when you have it, William. So William's prepared some slides about the contextualized ESOL, the workers' rights training and the year 13 program, which are the top three. Actually, could you pull up the investment tracker?
Yeah, just give me one second.
Priorities tracker. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And while William's doing that, so I want us to start with our top three, some of which we funded before, and so we're kind of seeing where we are on that. And then year 13, which is an our existing summer city program, that we're going to talk about more. But I think, especially in light of your observation, Tom, I am interested in hearing how, as we go into our next several meetings of talking about our priorities and how we want to fund them. I guess I'm interested in doing a pulse check with the board on hearing how folks are thinking about our spending. And this isn't like a prelude to a vote or like something that, I don't know, I need like a thesis on, but I'm just sort of interested in hearing how folks are thinking about it. Because we started right before the pandemic, then we were in the pandemic, which was both a time of high need and fluctuating development dollars, right? And so I think it's good to touch base on where we are, where of course there is still need in Somerville, and also we're about to see a slowdown of funds coming in. So I'm just genuinely curious in how folks are thinking about that. If you have any thoughts you want to share with the board.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea that, if we could, almost do we kind of dedicate a meeting to that, because it's a big topic, and, maybe just having a time to be able to kind of discuss that. And then, it's funny, what Rachel brought up about Triumphant, right? So I just went on their website, and they have 14 different available jobs in Somerville, and a whole range of different types of things, from material handlers to sales representatives to people with a CDL license. It's up and down the avenue. And I think one of the things, and I know it's been frustrating, I think on our end, to try to get some of these businesses more involved with the trust. And again, I think we talked about this before, is being able to advertise out to them, what the trust is, and what our goals are and how we need their participation. So, it all kind of falls under that umbrella, I think, and we just got to figure out how to do it, I guess.
Thanks, Tom. I hear you on the idea of when we have a planning conversation as a board to dedicate some of our time to thinking about how we would maybe parcel out the funds, or like sort of what would be like a long-term plan in terms of thinking about the fund spending. I'm seeing some nods.
Yeah, I think it would also be helpful to have some sort of document that, I don't know, does a overall summary of what we've funded, where we've been, what we're funding now, where we're going in terms of our priorities, to get a sense of, what we've been doing in order to think about the future. So something like that would be helpful for a future meeting. I guess in general, I'm thinking that, we're not in an emergency now, so I don't feel like we have a rush to spend money as fast as we can, like we did during the COVID-19 pandemic. But I think that, people still need training and jobs and quality jobs. So, I don't think we should sit on any money. And I guess I'm feeling like the pace of our investments should be, about as fast as we can keep up with ourselves. I don't want to rush William and Rachel, but to the extent that we can keep things moving forward, I think that's good. I mean, when Rachel was talking, I was like, wow, if we don't get any new investments in 2025, we could spend all of 2024's money by the end of 2025, and then almost have like a pause period, I guess, for the board, which is probably a possibility. I mean, I know there's other things that are being built, but not to the level that these labs have been being built, so.
Mm.
It does seem like it needs a bigger conversation.
That's helpful. Okay. We'll have a funding strategy. I mean, we're always strategizing about funding, but I think sort of like a dedicated agenda topic to thinking about the balance and what's coming in, and we'll come up with some facilitated tools or questions for us to talk through that as a board. I'd now like to talk about, yeah, where we are on these top 3 priorities. So I think now is a good time for the slides, William. Thank you for pulling those up. So William's going to cover the historical work on these priorities that we've funded in the past, some more context about the city. There we go. Wage theft focus position and the Year 13 program. So William, I will turn it over to you.
Great, thanks for teeing things up. So I put together this little presentation just to kind of talk about speaking a little bit to Vicky's point and what some others have raised, seeing kind of what we have been doing in the past related to some of our top priorities, and just thinking about how we can continue to work toward those 3 priorities in the next year. So the top 3 priorities that the trust voted on back in the January meeting were 1, contextualized ESOL, 2, workers' rights curriculum / train the trainer training, and 3, the Year 13 program. So looking first at contextualized ESOL, we had a pretty robust offering from 2022 to 2023, and actually going back to 2020. But in 2022 and 23, we had 2 organizations that were leading the work in this area that the trust was funding, which was Bunker Hill, and then also Scale. Both of these programs met or exceeded their enrollment goals from 2022 to 2023 and had pretty strong completion rates, at and around 84%. There were also significant numbers from both of those programs that went on to continue their learning, either by re-enrolling in ESOL, enrolling in community college, enrolling in a job training program. So that's just a little bit of context on the success of those programs. I also want to draw your attention to the highlighted numbers in the right side of the column. So this is showing the investment that the trust made during that time, and then the cost per student to achieve this. So between those 2 programs, we invested almost $750,000. That was supporting almost 250 residents. So I just want people to keep those numbers in mind as we look at the current balance, and then we look at, you know, what it could potentially cost to run programs of similar size in the next year. The second of the priorities is workers' rights curriculum and train the trainer training. And in the meeting materials, both when we had our meeting canceled back in February due to the weather, but also for this meeting, I shared the draft job description for the worker empowerment specialist position, which is scheduled to sit in the economic development division, and is scheduled to be a 3-year position. This slide gives an overview of the primary goals and objectives of that position, which involves basically figuring out what the landscape of workers' rights trainings looks like in Somerville, working on curriculum development and delivery of workers' rights programming along with community partners. And then in year 2 and year 3, also expanding that work to the business side, educating business owners and managers about workers' rights, about offering quality employment, about avoiding potential issues there as they may relate to wage theft or workers' rights. So that is the second. I'll just touch on the third, and then we can take questions on any of these. So the third priority for the trust in 2024 is the year 13 program. Currently, it's being run by ARPA funding as a post-secondary success coaching program supporting Somerville High grads and those that are on the cusp of graduation. We currently have 2 post-secondary support coaches. They are funded through the end of the calendar year 2024. And Rachel and I have invited them to come to our next meeting to report on the successes of the program as we start to figure out what this program might look like post ARPA funding. So I'll pause there. I can jump back between the slides. And then I have a couple of 1 or 2 questions for the group as well if we don't get to them through conversation.
Thanks, William. Do folks have any, I guess, questions or comments about the ESOL classes and then the year 13? And then since we have the job description that William sent in advance, I think we could have, if folks have questions or feedback about that one, a kind of dedicated focus on that. Tom, was your comment about Tom?
Yeah, I wanted, could you go back to the first slide, William? So on this one, I'm just seeing, looking at what it cost Bunker Hill to do this versus Scale. It's Scale was almost double the amount of Bunker Hill. And, Bunker Hill did 203 residents, Scale did 40. So, is there any way to measure, did one program do better than the other? Is there any way to measure that? Because, we're almost spending double the amount for what I assume is similar training.
Yeah, so one of the big differences with the Scale program is that their program offered both ESOL and the adult basic education high school equivalency. So they had, I believe, 11 graduates, Somerville residents that graduated with high school diplomas. At the end of 2023, they also offered that program in Spanish, which is a pretty unique offering. So I would say that program kind of just has a little bit more of a menu of offering for students. And that's why the cost per student is higher.
You know, that's a big difference to that. So yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Is there
As a
anything?
follow on to that, Tom, I'm also wondering if any of the Bunker Hill students were able to access student financial aid. And so maybe the program cost was similar, but they were able to leverage other funding.
So Vicky, your question is about like how Bunker Hill's costs.
I was just,
Yeah.
I was just wondering if any of the 203 residents that were trained in Bunker Hill were accessing student financial aid, which helped to pay for the program.
My understanding is that the program was fully funded by the trust, and
Okay.
in the situation, so that program ended in the fall of 23, and I believe that students are being asked to kind of join the main programs to continue their learning and to pay at this point. But that's a really interesting conversation, especially considering you know, Mass Reconnect and the efforts at community college affordability, whether there are other ways we could curb the cost of that program. So that's a great point.
Rachel, did you have something in addition to that?
Yeah, William, do you want to, maybe I'm remembering this incorrectly, but is there a difference also in how the stipends went with these? Because the Bunker Hill one's like a bigger partnership, there were multiple components of it.
Yeah, so the cost per student there does include the student stipends. Both organizations struggled a bit with getting student stipends out to participants, which actually means that we're still working on invoicing, but I'm not expecting 100% of those amounts to be spent. We might have a portion of that money left unspent as those contracts are closed. But this is another area where we're thinking about, you know, if these programs are run again, how can we do it in a better way? We've talked with Bunker Hill a little bit about student accounts and whether, you know, there could be an account that actually could invest their further learning at Bunker Hill or somewhere else. So that's another way we might be able to optimize the program. But as a reminder, Bunker Hill was training most of those students in ESOL. They also had 50 of those students at the Welcome Project. Yeah, I don't know if that spoke to your question, Rachel, but that's the stipend piece is something else we're trying to work out if this is run again.
I know I had a conversation with the dean for workforce development at Bunker Hill, because she was also asking, I think she was interested in possibly filling the business seat on the board and whether or not it would be a conflict of interest or not, which I don't think I've gotten an answer yet on that. But I think, I know they were disappointed where they didn't get any funding this year because they felt that the program had gone really well. It's almost like one of the things on one of the state boards that I'm on is we would do these, you know, traffic highway intersection projects or roadway projects, and nobody ever really went back to see, hey, did it fix the problem we were trying to solve, right? So I was able, after a couple of years, to provide funding to actually have our staff to go back and see how well it all went. You know, did it go as well? And, you know, it was very interesting. I'd say 99% of the projects solved the problem they were hoping to do, which is what you want to hear. And but even on something like this, it would be interesting to hear from the people that ran the program at Bunker Hill and Scale to tell us, hey, what did you feel your successes were? And where did you feel like it, you kind of fell down or it just didn't work? And I know because she mentioned to me about the stipends and how there was some back and forth with the city trying to figure out how to do that. So I know I'd be interested in something like that to hear on, especially, we're looking at over 700. So it's probably the single biggest thing we've done, to get a little feedback from them to say, hey, this part of it went really well and this part of it was clunky and it didn't work so well. And what can we do to maybe improve it? And I thought that was very interesting about Scale, about, going back to do the high school equivalencies and things like that. It's almost like, boy, can we combine these programs to make it into one really good program and, have a partner like that, where I know when we were doing the advanced manufacturing, which was not part of this piece, we had a partnership with Bunker Hill, and Bunker Hill did the math part of it all. And then we did the hands-on training with the CDC machines and all that. And that worked out really well. So, if again, it's kind of kicking the tires with them, what worked, what didn't, and then maybe see between the two of them, could we combine programs? Again, I'm spitballing here a little bit, but when I look at the disparity with the numbers, but you did answer it as far as they were doing more, it wasn't just ESOL, but it just seems like maybe there might be an opportunity there.
Thanks, Tom. William, could you remind me, have we received the final reports from both of these grantees?
We do have the reports, and the only pieces we're still working on for both of them is the stipends and the final invoices.
Okay. I think it would be helpful, even if we don't have the invoice piece, to have the reports for us to look at next time. Because I think what I would like to do, and I see your hand raised, Jim, and I am going to call on you in a second. I had a clarification about this report piece. I think it would be, so one, we need to decide if we want to put out like an additional or a new RFP. If I'm remembering correctly with our RFP process, we already re-upped it, and now it would need to go out as a new one. William, am I remembering that correctly? Okay.
Yeah, we're releasing things on a yearly basis, especially because of the unknowns surrounding the funding and the availability from year to year.
Well, I think even more specifically, I was talking about the type of agreement that we have with the grantees. Is there a piece around limits to like how many times you can just renew before we put it back out on the street, or is that?
So they
in the weeds here.
It's okay. They can't automatically renew without responding to the next RFP.
Okay. So I think we, as a board, will want to talk about at our next meeting, kind of, this is one of our top priorities. We see some information about how this went for our grantees. So I think in our next meeting, we'd want to have a conversation about putting out a new RFP and what amount we would want there. And I'm kind of interested in having that as a discussion as a board. Is there kind of more information that folks would want to know before you would be ready to have a conversation about amounts for an RFP or kind of design of an RFP? Do folks think that this is something that we would do fairly similarly to what we did in the past and talk about as a full board, or does anyone have any thoughts that it might be useful to have a subcommittee to delve into this deeper? I'm interested in hearing how folks are feeling about this. And while you think about that, Jim, let me call on you and you can comment. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I saw as soon as the slide came out, I saw Tom raise his hand. So I was gonna question the almost double. It's almost maybe worth putting another column, William, or an asterisk, just spelling it out, because if someone sees this without the explanation, it looks so far off. So that would be my suggestion. And then, yeah, I think the outcomes would be great to see before we give out any more funds.
Rachel?
I think one opportunity that might make sense, whether it's in a subcommittee or a full board, I'm not sure which, would be to actually call in the folks who ran these programs and just get in, and maybe it's at the same time, maybe it can be a subcommittee that's like both Scale and Bunker Hill in one go, and that way there is an opportunity to potentially see if there's alignment for partnership in the future, or like, but I could see that maybe being a subcommittee kind of task, just to save time in the monthly meetings.
Thanks, Rachel. Do you have a comment, Tom?
No, I agree. I think that's, I think before, we make any further decisions, I really want to, see the outcomes and get that chance to talk to both of them and, get what they felt like worked and what didn't, and then see if we can then encourage a partnership with them.
Okay. Do you folks think it would be helpful to have a conversation like that before we put an RFP out? We'd get a sense of if there's anything we want to change in the design. Okay, sounds good. Who would be interested in being on a subcommittee focused on or contextualize ESOL and adult ed?
I will.
Well, I'm seeing so many people that I kind of, let's see. 4.
You want hands?
No, that's helpful. I saw the count. I guess I'm just wondering if we have like overwhelming board interest, if this would be a topic at a future board meeting instead of a subcommittee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's do that. William, if you could put on our notes that we want to get the report from these 2 grantees, even understanding that there's maybe like a invoice thing that you're dealing with. I think we're more looking at like the outcomes from these programs, and that we want to invite grantees to come speak with us so we can hear how the programs have been going, successes, challenges, and it could inform our thinking about how we do this work in the future and how we sort of like think about our funding design. Okay, so let's go to our second topic, actually, we could just go in order of the slides. On the worker empowerment specialist, I'm seeing in the chat that there's room to consider changes, that this could be an opportunity to give feedback. Am I right that if folks have other written feedback, that they could also pass that along? But I want to open it up to see if anyone has any questions or any feedback that you'd like to share on the job description that we shared with us. Vicki, I'm just going to give a voiceover to your comment above where you said you'd like to see more focus on job quality practices, not just federal and state regulations.
Overall, I thought it was really great. And I'm just doing some track changes to add a few little pieces in, just like, for example, on that statement of duties first paragraph, there was a lot of focus on state and federal labor laws and more legal things, and not as much focus on things like business practices that support job quality. So I'm just adding in that phrase in a couple different places to ensure that we don't leave that part behind. But overall, I think it's like 98% there, in my opinion.
Thanks, Vicki. Rand?
one of the biggest tools that the city has to improve job quality is procurement. So we have a living wage, I believe, ordinance for city vendors over, I forget, 10,000. It's not that big a number. I forget the number, but so if there was a way we could maybe mention that somewhere, that's this person could be looking at those contracts and making sure that that we're procuring our services and from subcontractors that are complying with the law.
Rachel?
There are some folks working on diversity in procurement currently. So that's a really helpful comment because I will run this draft description by them and Rand your comments as well and see if there's a layer to this that would be helpful.
Rand, please, Rachel. Tom?
Just a quick question because I'm forgetting something on this. Does this go out for an RFP or is this a city position?
This would be city position.
Okay, but it would only be, right now it says 3-year contract. That's what is throwing me off a little bit.
Yeah, I can explain that a little bit. If it's all right.
Yeah, thanks.
One of the challenges that we've had in even getting this far on this description is figuring out if there's enough here for a full-time role forever. And that's the key question. Is like, there's definitely enough here for the next few years. The question is like, if we were building off of that train the trainer concept that we had early on at the trust, does this person write themselves out of a job? And that Vicky's shaking her head, but I think part of the idea is like, we need somebody, this has happened in other departments when new ideas like this come about, that you would bring on a consultant to figure out what the job could be. And so the idea is, let's skip that step, let's do the work, but also set the person who's doing the work the task of figuring out what's realistic on a long-term basis to make this a real job.
And the other question would be, is this funded solely through our board or is the city picking up part of this?
No, this is actually fully funded on the general fund.
Okay.
I love the idea of Somerville eradicating wage theft in the next 3 years. I am also a realist that I suspect that won't happen, though I hope that we make great strides with this position. So I would agree with Vicky. I think this should be a permanent position. That would be my feedback on the structure of this role. Rand?
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, I think where we are is this job description the permanent job description? That's more of the question.
Well, that could change because I could definitely see, the person going deeper, doing more coaching with employers, expanding the wage theft, help and assistance provided to employees who have experienced wage theft. But, everybody's job kind of changes over time too. So I think this is a good starter job description. And then as we're making progress and needing to do different things to support the goal, then the position might evolve a little bit.
If I can go one layer deeper on it, one of the early conversations we were having was, does this need to be a lawyer? And if it needs to be a lawyer, where does it live? And so we've landed on no, not a lawyer. And a big part of that is how does this person's job coordinate with the AG's office and with our nonprofit community that's already doing this work as well? And so we're in this maybe they aren't writing themselves out of the job, but maybe they're writing themselves into an expanded role that's at a higher level. Like that's the kind of thing we don't know. It was budgeted for it at a certain pay scale, and we need to figure out, does this job description even match that pay scale is one of the things that HR is looking at right now. And then we got to go from there as to what happens next.
Yeah, with the Rand has Rand has a question and a comment around with the burden of funding beyond the JCRT beyond these 3 years. And recommends no lawyers.
I would say on that question, if it's all right, that there isn't an answer there. I don't know that we're in a. My expectation is that no, this lands on the general fund going forward, but I do wonder if the scale of the work changes, is there a differential kind of split scenario that we may end up in? Again, we don't know the level of seniority beyond this 3 years. That's what we're going to try and launch with, and then see if we need to think about this being a more senior position or two position. Like, there's just a lot of questions.
Thanks, Rachel. If folks have if other feedback comes to you, could you email William? And does anyone have any other specifics about the language of the draft that was shared with us that you want to raise now? Oh, Tom.
Not so much the language, but again, I'm trying to figure out the extent of the problem. Does the city have any stats on, what kind of an issue this is throughout the city? Because that would help us, understand better, how deep the problem is, that type of thing. I know in the past, there was a couple of instances where, I know one bigger employer at the time, definitely had an issue in the state. State stepped in and I think corrected the problem they were having, whether it was intentional or not, I don't know. But so I'm just trying to get a feel for, like you said earlier, is there enough work on this? And the only other thing in the reading, and I want to take I got to think about this a little bit. I want to make sure that whatever we do here, employers and companies aren't going to be thinking, oh, wait a minute, this is against us. The city's not working with us here, because I can see that happening. To be honest with you, and just because of the name of it, and then the way I never liked the phrase wage theft. I don't know what else you would call it, but and I think I've brought this point up before. Is I think with a lot of small businesses, when there is an issue like this, I don't feel like it's intentional. It's they may have not didn't have the resources to actually know what the latest and greatest thing from the state is on, what they're supposed to be doing. So I want to make sure when we're writing this, that there is a lot there to kind of assist businesses, to especially small businesses that don't have the wherewithal to sometimes to kind of keep up with all this stuff, because it's daunting even for a business like ours when things change, and there's a lot of work to it, and it is easy to make a mistake. It really is, and so that's one of my concerns on this is I don't want businesses to feel like, oh, geez, this person's coming after me, and that's a concern I have, and we got to figure out a good balance there,
So I would just lift up that part of the contract includes creating a curriculum for business owners and managers on workers' rights.
Yep, we saw that.
Addressing your piece. Rand and then Rachel.
I was just trying to find some old documents that I have, but I remember looking at a Attorney General's report. It would have been before COVID, like 2018. And there was easily a dozen businesses in the city that were in violation of on her, well, it might have been Scott Harshberger, I forget. But anyways, the AG had a bunch of Somerville businesses, including some that I patronize. I remember it was the Highland Kitchen was one of the wage theft violators. And it was, Tom, it was a situation where they were out of compliance, out of ignorance, not out of greed.
Yeah. Yep.
There were plenty of violators in the city of Somerville. And I suspect it wouldn't take long to go on the AG site, parse out the Somerville violators again.
Rachel?
That'd be interesting. Yep.
Yeah, I think another layer we've been thinking about are for particularly our smallest businesses, the family-run businesses.
Yep.
There is what we hear out there is exactly to Tom's point that there is so much that they don't know that they are scared to hire. And they don't want to put themselves in a risky place, right? That like if you're hiring within the family, it's a little easier to follow the politics of the risk feels lower. And so they aren't expanding, they aren't growing, they aren't creating jobs because they just don't know what the HR practices are. And that's been a piece that I think this board has been talking about for a while, is how do we help those business owners feel confident. And I think that's where we were trying to navigate this, is like, and why we don't want to use the wage theft term. The Wage Theft Advisory Committee is a named group already. Maybe there's an opportunity to shift that name to help align with this more collaborative idea. But that is something we've been trying to think about really cautiously, and would love perspectives on the language if you see something that feels like it would raise concern.
Good conversation, folks. Thanks for sharing feedback. I'd like to move us to our last of the top three. And so as I think a next step on that, just to wrap, so this is a city position. It's funded by the city and not the trust. I expect it will go out for hire at some point. And then once that person is hired, I think the trust could revisit this and see if there's anything related to like supporting programming that sort of from a supplementary role that is a need, and that could be an area where the trust contributes. So I think that would be our next step on this, is to get the position moving, hired, and then figure out how to sort of like build up the just figure out if there's a role, there's a role that we can play. Would be my recommendation for the next steps on this piece. It's sort of an imminent shift within the city of hiring this person. On the third piece, I want to see if folks have any questions about this. Questions or comments?
I had a question when I first saw it. Are we would we support a year 13 program on our own in 2024 that runs parallel to the post-secondary support coaches run by the city or Somerville High School? Or that's option one. Option two, would we add to the current program and just expand it with any investment funds that we would put into this? Or three, would we wait until the ARPA funding runs out at the end of 2024 and then save our investment for continuing the program into 2025? So those are kind of the options that I was wondering if those are the options and which one would be smartest to do.
On my end, yeah, I think that it's probably a way to go, but I'd like to find out more about how this program went this past year, because it's because what would be asked to basically pay for 2 more salaries, right, that are city salaries. And but I really want to get a good idea of how this is, and I forget, but I'm not even sure. And Jim, you may know, is the high school involved with this programming? Have you had to deal with it at all, or do you know if Alicia has as a principal?
Yeah, I do not. I'd have to see who's in these positions.
Yeah.
There are a lot of programs up to high school. So,
Well, that's the other thing, yeah.
Rachel?
I think I can answer some of these questions. So the current coaches, they sit on the economic development team. They work very closely with the guidance team at Somerville High School and for Full Circle. In terms of selecting the cohort who will be supported. They've been working with the first cohort since April of last year, and they are currently recruiting for the second cohort, thinking about, summer melt, how do we help those folks get to their next thing by next September. So it is a very much linked to Somerville High School, but it currently sits on the city side. When it comes to the funding, where it is fully funded both with the staff positions for the coaches and material support for the students through to end of 24 for those two cohorts. The team will give you a much more in-depth explanation of how it's been going, what the success rates have been, what kinds of roles they've been helping folks meet, and what goals they've been working with students on, hopefully at the next meeting. So they can get into those details of what comes next.
Jim?
Rachel, do you know if they're working out of the college and career with Melanie Kessel? Do you know if they're working out of that office?
They are working with Melanie, yes.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so now it sounded familiar. Yes, they are, they do great things. Thank you.
And Rachel, when they come, would they be able to present what their budget was, what it cost them for this year, what they were anticipating for next year, and the number of students they were able to assist?
Yes, yeah, they're going to be presenting that. And part of where we are on this one is the city budget is still in the works. And so we won't know for another month or two if these do fall onto general budget. There's a lot of ARPA programs that are being considered right now. We have been advocating for this one to be carried onto the general fund going forward. But it is being looked at in the context of all ARPA transition projects. And so we will have more information April, May, June, bit by bit, the picture will become clearer. But for now, I think it's valuable for you all to get a flavor of the whole thing, and so we can keep talking about what role the JCRT and JCRT funding might have, because it may be less, it may be more. We don't know yet, and we probably won't know really until the May or June meeting.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Rachel, this program says year 13 program. Is that the frame time that the a school academic year has, or it's shorter? And do you guys have any amount of interest of the students, a number, or?
Yeah, the coaches themselves will be able to give you much better answers on that next time. But yeah, the idea of the year 13 has really come out of a longstanding idea of how do we support folks transitioning out of the K-12 system. What does that 13th year in their educational life look like? And our program is very specifically not a college success program. It is open to all students, whether they are going on to college, to or to a more specialized training after that. So they can give you a much better picture of the interest range. They just did their some info sessions for students, for seniors at the high school in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so thanks for inviting the coaches to come speak to us. And I encourage folks to think in advance about what questions you have about the program and their successes and challenges. And then I think that'll help us think through the different options or better understand what we're looking at. Thanks, folks, for talking about our top 3 priorities. I would like to, it's almost 8 o'clock, so I'd like to shift us to looking at our upcoming meeting dates. Our next 2 meetings are scheduled for April 9th, the day after the solar eclipse, and May 14th. And so I really just want to touch base and see like if people think they're going to be able to go to these to see if we have any anticipated quorum issues. So for 4-9, could you raise your hand if you're like sure you're going to be able to go? Okay. All right. Well, that's a max. Or yeah, not max. Majority. Okay, so for 5-14, could you raise your hand if you are going to be able to go?
That's school vacation week, by the way.
Wait, sorry, I think I have an error on the second date, but let me, oh wait, no, that is a Tuesday. Never mind.
April 9th is not school vacation.
19.
No, the week of the 14th through the 20th, school vacation.
That's May.
Yeah, April looks good on the 9th. That's not school. That one's not school vacation.
Yeah, I'm available the 9th, but not the 16th.
14th? May 14th?
The
Oh, we're
14th
talking-
of May. Yeah,
I'm
no.
back in April, I'm sorry. If you're talking May, I'm wide open.
All right, super. Okay, it sounds like we won't have any scheduling issues for these. Okay, are there any additional items not reasonably anticipated by the chair? Seeing none, I welcome a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Tom with a second. Okay, all in favor of a motion to adjourn, we'll read you out. Tom Benn,
Yes.
Vicky Coates,
Yes.
Sylvana Dinka,
Yes, and thank you.
Jim Hatchie,
Yes.
Rachel Ned Carney,
Yes.
Annika Van Eaton, yes, Rand Wilson.
Yes.
All right, meeting adjourned at 8:01 p.m. I hope you all have a good rest of your week, everybody. It's good to see you.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you
Great
all.
meeting-
Bye.
Great meeting, everyone.
Have a good night.